If you make one simple mistake in Pokemon Ruby or Sapphire, this one old man NPC will destroy your playthrough and leave you unable to complete the game. This man's name is Mr. Briney, and just like the thousands of NPCs you meet across the game, his unique backstory and character help add a layer of realness to the turn-based RPG game that is Pokemon. And the story begins with you, a young trainer who's newly acquired his first gym badge at Rustboro City. Your first encounter with Mr. Briney is in the Rust Turf tunnels, and he's pacing around because a Team Magma grunt kidnapped his beloved Pokemon, which is a low-level Wingull named Pico. And seeing the sad old man and his love for his Pokemon, you decide to help him, and you save his Wingull from the Team Magma grunts in the cave, after which he thanks you and offers you a ride anytime you need. Because you see, Mr. Briney owns a boat which transports the player between 3 locations: the Petalburg City Woods, Dewford Town, which is located on an island south of the region, and Slateport City. So how could this innocent old man who offers you free rides and plays with his Wingull every day possibly be evil? Well, this happens after you get your 4th gym badge from the smoking hot Flannery in Laveridge Town. You then walk from Laveridge Town to Slateport City, and you notice your old friend Mr. Briney by the docks. Eager to tell him about your journey, you take his daily boat ride first to Dewford Town, where you remember that you need to pick up the old rod because you forgot to do it earlier in the game, and it's located by a fisherman's hut. But let's say your mom called you down for dinner right at this moment, and you save the game, and you turn your Game Boy off at this exact moment. At this point, the next course of action you take might determine whether your playthrough comes to an end or continues, because what you're supposed to do now is take the boat ride to Petalburg City. And in Petalburg City, you face your father Norman, who's the normal type gym leader. And after a hard-fought battle with his 2 slackings, you receive the Petalburg City Gym Badge and you embrace your Pokemon. But before exiting the gym, you remember that actually you forgot to get the rod from the old fisherman in Dewford Town. And it's quite a long way back, so you use the Kadabra on your team to teleport you back to where you last saved, which is in Dewford Town. This is fatal mistake number 1. You then get the rod from the fisherman, you head to the dock, and you see something that completely confuses you. Mr. Briney and his boat are gone. Because as far as you know, the only way off that island is through that particular boat. And because it just disappeared, it renders you permanently stuck on that small isolated island south of the Hoenn region. At this moment, you think the game is having some sort of glitch, so you save the game, take out the cartridge, and play again. This is fatal mistake number 2, because when you load up your save file again, you will find that the ship is still missing, and you are permanently trapped on the island. See, after you beat Norman and you leave the gym, the game is supposed to give you the HM Surf, allowing you to travel by sea. And because of that, Mr. Briney's boat is no longer needed, so he packs up and leaves. But in this case, because you teleported before you left the gym, and then you saved in Dewford Town, you're essentially stuck in Dewford Town with no HM Surf, with no Mr. Briney, with no boat, and no access to the rest of the Hoenn region. And then, just when it couldn't get any worse, we learn from the post-game that the reason Mr. Briney left his post as the transporter between Dewford Town and the rest of the mainland is because he got a job as captain of the SS Title. And by taking the presumably high-paying job, he left both you and literally everyone else on the island closed off from the rest of the world, and you are unable to continue the storyline. No food, no supplies, and no return to family. Just Dewford Town forever. But there may be a way out of the soft lock. Because remember that fishing rod you came here for? You frantically assign it to your key item slot and then run to the water, thinking that you can catch a water type that knows surf and then escape the island. But unfortunately, it's to no avail, because even though these Pokemon can learn surf, you don't have the HM, so you can't teach it to them. Then it seems hopeless once again until a stroke of genius hits you. What if you trade in a Pokemon that already knows surf? With this brilliant idea in mind, you rush into your brother's room, you take his Game Boy, and trade in his level 30 Lapras, effectively stealing it. And once you transfer the Lapras to your party, you once again rush to the dock to test it out. And as you open your list of Pokemon and click on Lapras, nothing happens. Once again, the reason this doesn't work is because you haven't received the HM for Surf, and so Lapras can only use the move in battle and not to transport you. And then you realize your fate. You're permanently stuck on this island. So because of Mr. Briney's betrayal, you and the other residents of Dewford Town are forced to live out the rest of your days without ever touching the mainland and surviving on a diet of Magikarps and Tentacools. The days pass quickly on the island, and eventually the world, your parents, the other gym leaders begin to forget about you. And while you pass the days battling low-level Magikarps for the small amount of XP they have, Mr. Briney sits on his luxurious yacht without even thinking to save you. Now, this major flaw in the game only occurs in Ruby and Sapphire, because after the games were released, fans found this game-breaking scenario, and the developers quickly patched this in the sequel Pokémon Emerald. So if you try to do this in Pokémon Emerald, it won't be a problem, because as soon as you beat Norman, Wally's parents come up to you and give you the HM before you're able to teleport. So even if you manage to teleport back and you notice that there's no ship, it's still possible to escape. With the use of a fishing rod, you can catch a Tentacool, teach it surf, and then ride its 2-pound body back to the mainland. And if you try the exploit in the remakes, Pokemon Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby, the same thing will happen. Wally's parents basically drag you in this edition out of the gym and into their house, and then they give you the HM Surf. But in Ruby and Sapphire, the original games, your Pokemon playthrough comes to a permanent end. And unfortunately for you, the only way to resolve this is to load up a new save file, all because of one money-hungry old man who abandoned you and the small fishing village of Dewford Town. Thanks for watching the video, and if you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe.